Hello students, this is an introductory video on chromatography. The term chromatography was coined by Mikhail Svet from two Greek words, chromatos meaning color and graphos meaning written. Thus chromatography literally means colored writing. This technique was developed by Mikhail Svet, a Russian botanist who was interested in separating chlorophyll and other pigments from plant extracts. He poured leaf extract samples in petroleum ether and allowed it to pass through a column of calcium carbonate. On continuous addition of ether, various pigments were separated in a series of differently colored and easily distinguishable zones. This was the beginning of chromatography. Today, it is one of the most versatile analytical techniques available to us that allows for separation, purification, and identification of compounds irrespective of its color. Let us have a look at the principle behind it. It involves a differential distribution of sample components between two mutually immiscible phases, a stationary phase and a mobile phase. As the name indicates, a stationary phase remains fixed while the mobile phase moves over the stationary phase. The mobile phase carries with it the different components of the sample, and depending upon the interaction between the components and the two phases, they emerge at different time from the stationary phase. In other words, the components migrate at different rates, thus emerging from the stationary phase at different time. A component that has a strong affinity to the stationary phase tend to emerge last. To understand this concept, imagine your classmates moving out of your classroom. A student with lot of friends will spend more time in the classroom and come out, while a loner with minimum interaction may probably move out first. Let us now have a look at the classification of chromatographic techniques. One of the methods of classification involves classifying it based on the physical state of the two phases, that is, gas-liquid chromatography, where the gas phase is the mobile phase and the liquid phase is the stationary phase. Gas-solid chromatography, where, as you can imagine, solid phase is the stationary phase and gas phase is the mobile phase. Liquid-liquid chromatography, where a thin film of a liquid is generally the stationary phase and the mobile phase is also another liquid which is immiscible with it. And liquid-solid chromatography, wherein solid is the stationary phase and a liquid is the mobile phase. Another method of classification is based upon the mechanism involved. For example, it can be classified into adsorption chromatography and partition chromatography. The components are selectively adsorbed in adsorption chromatography and the solid onto a solid stationary phase. In case of partition chromatography, the components are partitioned or distributed between a liquid stationary phase and a gas or liquid mobile phase, that is, both LLC and GLC, that is liquid-liquid chromatography and gas-liquid chromatography come under this. Another method of classification is based on operational technique used. For example, column chromatography employs a column of solid adsorbent as the stationary phase. Paper chromatography, where stationary phase may either be the paper itself or a thin film of liquid held on to a paper. Thin layer chromatography, wherein a thin layer of adsorbent is coated onto a base plate made up of glass or plastic. We will discuss details of these in further classes. Thank you.